Everyone, welcome to Daily Word number 754. We have reached the end of another week, and it's going to be a hot day, but boy, the sun's shining beautifully, and we'll just take that, I think. So thanks for joining me, as always, for our time together, and our conversation that Scripture helps us live better. Scripture helps us in the words that we say, the actions we take with each other, and just the way that we conduct our lives. And I think that's what's important for us. And we've been on this long journey together of these daily words. And as always, I'm glad you could carve out time to be with me and say good morning, good afternoon, or whatever day it is that you're watching. I pray that this has been a significant thing for you as you've watched me. Some of you have watched me since day one, and that's an incredible thing, and I certainly appreciate that. So anyway, our scripture this morning, I thought it was a good way to end the week. You know, we can take lots of verses from lots of places, and I read the entire chapter, Deuteronomy 32. There's lots to say there. But I thought, based on some conversations I've had this week, and even some personal feelings I've had this week, that the scripture was good for us. Deuteronomy 32, chapter 10. Now, this is adapted a little bit, but you'll understand and read it, whatever version that you read at home. God shielded them, cared for them, guarded them as an apple of God's eye. God shielded them, cared for them, guarded them as an apple of God's eye. Now, saying someone is the apple of your eye isn't really necessarily biblical. Sort of, kind of not. But God does affirm in this text that we are the pupil of God's eye. Now, I tried to figure it out, and the literal translation from the meaning in Hebrew, it's not really certain what it means, but it seems that it means the little person of the eye. So I got to thinking about that. One of the things that my little people like to do, especially the older ones who can figure it out, is get really close and look in my eyes. And they can see themselves. They see themselves in my eye. And it's a pretty cool thing. And they say, Papa, I can see myself. And they also notice, of course, what color my eyes are. I have blue eyes. And that's an amazing thing, right? When you can get close enough to a person and look in their eye and see yourself in their eyes. It probably happens to us with very few people, but it's an amazing thing. And in this text, we are affirmed, we are told, we are reminded, maybe is the best word, that as far as God's concerned, we are the apple, the precious, intimate love of God's eye. We are the little people, the little person of God's eye. And I've had this conversation a couple of times this week with folks who are struggling with health issues, folks who are just struggling with their own self-worth and, feeling good about themselves or struggling, whatever that means. And I always say, just know that you're loved by God. And sometimes, that's just not enough for someone else to say. But the scripture then comes to us, the people of Israel on their long 40-year journey to the promised land, feel sometimes abandoned by God. Think sometimes that God's just not, where's God at? We're out here dying of thirst. We're out here at the Red Sea and the army is going to catch up with us. We're going to die of hunger. We're going around in circles, if you will. Where's Moses at when he goes to get the Ten Commandments? And they wait and they get frustrated and they build the idols. You know, there's all of these things that happen, but in the end, you know, we hear God shielded them, cared for them, guarded them as an apple of God's eye. This powerful text reminds us that we should draw close to God, closer still, and look deep and long in the eyes of God and see that we are imprinted right in the eyes of the Creator of heaven and earth. I've been this week, for the last couple of weeks, but this week especially, thinking about the song, His Eye is on the Sparrow. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be weary and long for heaven and home when Jesus is my fortress, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. And that's a reminder, and I'm going to sing it maybe, I think all the way out to August 13th, actually, when we're outdoors again, use this hymn. But it's this reminder for us that God's eye is on us, and our reflection is in God's eye. And we just need to be affirmed by that and loved by that and know that that's a powerful thing in each of our lives. And so I wanted to end the week with this, to remind us that we are right where we belong, in God's presence with us. And so I hope that you'll just know in your life that God sees us where we are. God's eye is on us. And you know, before I came out here, I looked deep in the mirror at myself, you know, got really close so I could see that reflection. And just to remind you and me and all of us that we are God's beloved children. And because of that, we should just be filled with grace and mercy. It doesn't wipe away all the frustrations, but we just know it, and it becomes this deep part of who we are. And then, of course, you know me well enough to know I'm going to say, and because we know it, then we have to share it with somebody else. And people have done that for me. Just this morning, a few minutes ago, I got a great gift brought to me. And the person said, I'm not going to out them. The person said, you know, I thought about you. That's all we need in life, right? And that's who God is for us as well. So, thanks for joining me this morning. Thanks for being with me this week as we continue this journey through Scripture together. Hope you'll join us for worship on Sunday morning at 10:15. We have a great morning planned, great music. We're going to take in 2 new members on a Sunday, and we're going to share in that and rejoice in them joining us. So I hope you be with us as we share worship at 10:15. If you can't be there in person, watch us here on Facebook Live or on our church website. And then join me here again Monday morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day and a great weekend, my friends.